I'll be demonstrating the 9-inch strapping jacket. This jacket will be used when extracting the patient from a space where you can't get a spinal board in, such as the seat of the car. So you want to make sure there's plenty of space between the back and the seat, so you will wind the seat back so that space is there. You place the blue board behind the patient, like so, and add the yellow tab for lumbar support to support the natural curvature of the spine. The first straps to go on are the groin straps. They fit under the patient's leg. So just put your hands on the steering wheel there so you can get under your legs. These straps go under the patient's leg to support lifting of the patient. The blue straps going on now are to prevent injury to the patient when lifting. So throughout the scenario, you'll be reassuring the patient, keeping them calm, keeping their head straight. At this stage, you would lift the 9-inch jacket just slightly to make sure that it is straight with the patient's back. Then the shoulder straps go over the clavicle and cross over the patient's chest. You should make sure that the shoulder straps are not going on top of the shoulder or around the arm. And these straps are tightened. Next go the chest and abdominal straps. The padding goes behind the patient's head to support the curve of their head. And then the next goes on is the forehead strap. This goes around the patient's forehead and forms a 45-degree angle with the board. At this stage, we're still performing middle, and the chin strap forms a 45-degree angle, down. Goes over the patient's chin and forms the same angle on the other side. Patient is now ready for lifting.
So this is the traction splint. It's for mid-femur injuries. So I'll be supporting the foot the whole time while my partner measures out his splint. So we'll measure it out by putting the top of the ischial strap just alongside the iliac crest of the hip. And then the bottom part of the splint goes about 5 inches below the foot. So we'll start by putting on the ischial strap. Yeah, it just goes right around there. Then ankle straps next. So while supporting it, he'll just wrap around. Like so. Yeah, now I can move on to just holding the foot by the strap here. We'll apply a small amount of traction. And move on to the strap. So we'll start by doing the upper thigh above the area of injury. It's important to not step over the area of injury, which is the mid-femur. So this, then above the knees next, followed by below the knees. So if the patient had any additional ankle or knee injuries, this splint will not be used. That's pretty good. Then we'll finish off the traction. Tuck away the excess. And the patient is then ready for transport.
Sally, what we're going to do is we're going to put this sand pelvic sling underneath your knees and then shuffle it up underneath you to wrap around your pelvis. So what we're going to do to be able to have this happen is we're going to get this team and we're going to be rolling you from side to side as we're shuffling it up underneath you. So to do that, if you could just cross your arms across your chest like so. I'm just going to slide this one underneath your knees. I'm just going to place my hand on your shoulder and on your hip. So what we're going to do, each time we're going to be rolling towards Sarah, and on the count of 3 on my count, 1, 2, 3, let's roll. 1, 2, 3, back down. Are you in any pain at the moment? No. Okay, ready to go again? 1, 2, 3, let's roll. 1, 2, 3, back down. We're going to strap, putting it through the buckle, and getting a second person to be pulling on that side as well. And pull. And tightening up there. Does that feel okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, you can relax your arms here.
So today I'm going to demonstrate the insertion of the nasopharyngeal and the oropharyngeal devices. So the nasopharyngeal is used to provide airway patency, and this one is measured by going from the tip of the nose to the end of the earlobe. Like so, there are different sizes. So for example, this one would be too short as it does not reach the end of the earlobe. So the complications of this device is that we can cause epistaxis, so bleeding of the nose, and if it is the incorrect size, it can be used as an airway obstruction. So we always lubricate this one for easier insertion. Okay. So we look for the right nostril is optimal, and we always check that there isn't a deviated septum. So we'll insert this one like so, with following the nasal passage, and just twist that in like so, and always ensure that the patient's head is in neutral position. And now I'm going to show you the oropharyngeal. So this one is used to maintain airway patency, and the complications of this device would be that we can cause airway trauma if it's inserted incorrectly. This can also cause aspiration, vomiting, and so always make sure you have suctioning if that happens. So to measure this one, the head should be tilted to head tilt. We have a jaw thrust and a movement of the chin like that. And so we measure this one by going from the middle of the lip to the end of the jaw, like so, and we insert this one towards the roof of the mouth, and then turning at 180 degrees once we get third in, and then the patient can use this as a bite block, and then always making sure that we consider the patient. So with insertion of the oropharyngeal in a pediatric patient, we would put the device in like this as they have a softer palate.
Nasopharyngeal airway insertion is used to provide airway patency to patients with a potential or actual airway obstruction. The device itself is pretty soft and flexible, so that allows it to be passed through the nasal passage without being lost in the nares. There aren't any contraindications to the device, but there are complications. The flared sharp distal end can cause a lot of epistaxis, especially if it's scraped along the septum. If it's incorrectly measured, then it can reduce the effectiveness. In patients with a sensitive gag reflex, it can cause vomiting or aspiration. And if your patient has a basal skull fracture, it can actually go into the cranial vault, causing more severe brain damage. So how we do this is we put the head in a neutral position. We then measure the device, so we're going to measure from the tip of the nose to the earlobe. You can see that this device doesn't make it, it's just short, so we'll move on to the next size. And this is probably the right size. So then we're going to lubricate it. And before we insert it, we're just going to check the nostrils. So we're going to look for a deviated septum. This patient doesn't have one, so we're going to use the right nostril because it's said to be longer and straighter. So we're going to point that sharp edge away from the septum, and we're just going to twist in small motions down until it tops it. So now I'm going to demonstrate an oropharyngeal airway. This device is used to maintain airway patency in unconscious patients. It can also be used as a bite block for those who have been intubated. The adjunct itself extends from the lips to the pharynx, and it prevents the tongue from occluding the airway. Again, there aren't any contraindications, but there are complications that can cause airway trauma. If you don't have the right size, it can act as an actual airway obstruction itself. People can be intolerant to it, so you may have to remove it, and it can also cause vomiting or aspiration in patients with an intact gag reflex. So the way we do this is we do a triple airway maneuver. So we tilt the head, jaw thrust. We measure the device from the incisors to the edge of the jaw, so that's about right. We point the device to the roof of the mouth, and then as we insert it, we do a 180-degree rotate and we slide it in. In pediatrics, or babies mostly, you do not point it to the roof of the mouth because they have a soft palate and you can cause trauma, so you just slide it in, like so.
This video is demonstrating the stiff collar cervical and the soft collar. The cervical collar is trying to keep the head stable, and it's very constrictive, so there'll be no movement at all. While the soft collar is more of a reminder for the patient to keep his head straight. How to apply it is to put the Velcro side under his neck, sliding very carefully, then popping that part over the collar and under his neck. When it is in place, you firmly push the Velcro on and it should stay straight. The soft collar is more of a reminder, and you do the same thing. You slide it under his neck, put it under his chin, slide it very carefully, and then again with the Velcro, and it should stay stable. Mainly just for C-spine injuries, and yeah.